I'm out here in a place called Knowle, which is, well, not far from Solihull. It's just outside of Birmingham. Obviously somebody's having work on the garden here. Average estate. Until you pan there, look, got palm trees. Maybe it's the weather. On the way back from Knowle, you know, the place with the palm trees, I remember that there was a farm shop not far from a place called Barkswell or Berkswell, depending on how posh you are and how you want to say the name. But an unusual farm shop. I wouldn't say it's the cheapest, but they sell amazing stuff in there. So amazing you think, I don't care about the price, I'm going to get some anyway. But they've got some pork. No, let's get this right. No, they're apple burgers. But they've also got these. Those are Welsh Red Dragon lamb sausages. I've never heard of such a thing. And he said they don't last long. I said, what, you got to eat them pretty quick? He said, no, he said, we don't get them in that often. So anyway, the reason I've got the freeze lid up is because they're all fresh. And obviously you've got to separate them and freeze them and then bag them, because if you don't, they'll all be stuck together in the bag, as well we know. So this is the reason why we diverted away from Raoul's house and I went to Knowle today. Nice run out. I went to buy this, which is a Sony MHC NX1. We're talking old style. This goes back to the year 2000 and a point in time where audio systems still had mechanical moving parts in them. Of course today now we're more used to MP3s. Incidentally, even when the CD was at its height, I was already moving to MP3, simply because I hated the crystal cases. They broke so easily. Storage was a pain in the neck, and I just found it was much easier to just store everything on my computer, and that's the way things have gone over time. My father really loved the mini disc player, and there's a couple of them around this house. I don't use them for that. I use it as an amplifier for me PC actually. But anyway, the reason I bought this is there are a lot of cassettes that I've got, probably 80-90% of which is complete junk. It'll just be recordings that you could get anywhere. But there are one or two things in there that I know that either won't be broadcast again or are unique recordings. So I'd like to get those transferred to MP3s. And my father also had a lot of cassettes, and I'm hopeful, not 100% confident, that somewhere amongst them will be a recording of me and my sister when we were about 1 or 2. And he originally recorded that on a reel-to-reel. That'd be a nice thing to find. So that's why I've got this, so I can gradually work through all that sort of stuff. Unfortunately nowadays, if you buy a tape deck, I think is it Tanamichi, that's the most common now. It's a very, very cheap tape mechanism. You know those little portable things that you get for converting cassette to MP3? All those decks, they all use the same sort of thing. Whereas, you know, these are at least a quality deck, and providing all the belts are in good order, I should get a good transfer from this. I should just make sure the tape heads are set up accurately and adjust accordingly. So anyway, that's why I went to Knowle. £55 seemed quite reasonable to me, and I'm sure I'll get many happy hours out of that until it gets in my way, and then I'm ready to sell it again. Old stereo systems seem to go for quite a lot of money now. It's quite surprising. Certainly tape decks do, and even the higher end. My father had a couple of TIAC reel-to-reel tape recorders, and as he got into the mini disc, this was very typical of him, said, "Oh, I don't want those now," and took them up the tip, not realising that second hand, one of these tape decks I think was worth around £1,500, but he had no concept of things like that and just threw them out. So that's why I've got this. It's not going to take up too much space, and it will do the job. This is the very back of my house. It's not pretty, is it? was this concrete garage, which, as I say, was probably designed for an Austin A7 or something. I don't know, tiny little thing. But believe it or not, my camper's in there. But the only way I could get it in was to take off this lintel that goes across the front. You have to do what you have to do in a hurry, don't you? Anyway, my plan is that going down there is the dividing line between me and my neighbour, and where I've already started to build a fence the other end, if you've watched the previous two. So I think what I'm going to have to do is pull this off, this section of fence off. This post is in good order, that's been replaced in recent years. So the next post I need to put in a new one, and the one after that, and start building this fence down the dividing line, but I can't really get to it unless I take this off. So I need tomorrow, which is going to be favourable weather conditions, what I shall do is once I've dropped my lad off at college, I shall remove this, try and save some of it, because it's actually not rotten. It's old, but it's not rotten. I can reuse some of this timber to block off that end, you know, further down between the garage and the dividing fence, and then hopefully I can join up the other fence. We'll see how we get on with that. I'll also need to take down this side and the gate and block off that end, perhaps reinstate the gate further down there. And my plan is this is Ralph's way of looking at things. We'll pull the door out of the way because it's only leant against the front of the camper at the moment, and I'm going to dismantle this garage, working back a section at a time. Yes, with the camper still in it. And a lot of the concrete will be laid in here on this area here, all the way down the side of the garage to raise the height so that I've got full width and I can get two vehicles on there. In the longer term, I'm going to have to dig it all up and have a big concrete pad laid there. We'll look at that perhaps next year. May get it done this year, don't know. But it's got asbestos roof sheets on that. That'll be fun. So carefully get those off and then stack them all up, and we'll get rid of those at a later date. But anyway, that's my plan for the morning. But it's going to be a bit, honestly, it's not, it did predict rain, but it's more chilly than anything else. And the other reason I need to demolish this garage is so that I've got enough area at the back to get a skip on here, because there's an awful lot of stuff still left that was my dad's, including bits of wood. None of this I want. It's always a shame to throw away good timber, but I've got way too much of it. So I want to get all this cleared, get all these bricks cleared, the excess concrete from the garage, and various other stuff, like all the soil, and this the whole lot needs clearing out. I think what I'll do is I'm going to use planks, board it off up to a manageable bed rather than what we've got now, and then we'll have some semblance of a garden then. If you're wondering what this wire is, it actually goes all the way up to the roof of the house. It was my dad's shortwave aerial, believe it or not. Yeah, so what I might do today is get this gutter off as a start, because it's not holding the garage together, but it's going to have to come off. Oh, another bird. Yeah. But I think, yeah, that'll work. I did see, actually, you know, there's shipping containers. It's like a small one. It's the sort of thing they use on a site, 10-foot one. And it was, I think it was about 1,700 quid, something like that. And I thought that would make an excellent secure shed, which is what I need really, because I don't have anything solid enough, dry enough and secure enough to put my tools in. And if you own a camper, oh boy, do you need tools. You do if you're going to keep it on the road. Otherwise you'd be forever putting it in a garage, and that'll cost you too much money. So yeah, I didn't particularly want to do all this job, but I certainly didn't want to be doing it this year, but it looks like I've got to, and I've got all the summer to do it. So but I want to get this garage demolished this week, section at a time. They come off in there's 4 sections to each one, and they're all bolted together. So you start to unbolt them, knock the first one off, next one, next one, next one, and then keep going and working your way through it until finally you're at the back end. I'm going to have a lot of concrete left over, but hey ho, that's it. So probably what I'll do is, there's another little bed here, framed with wood. That needs to go and get it level with the ground. It is slabbed here, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'll just go straight over it with all the concrete stuff. This stuff's a devil. It's known as Lords and it's an arum lily, I forget the name of it. And it's a woodland. It's a woodland plant, but it's invasive. It grows everywhere. So I'll be glad to dig some of that out. Yeah, so we'll have a go tomorrow when it's a bit warmer, because it is a little nippy. But perhaps later this afternoon, if it warms up a little, I'll come and take this guttering off. A somewhat dull view through my blind. And the reason why you're looking at this is because I'm going to take 5 minutes out to talk about the last 2 years for me personally at Ralph's house, because I think they're important and it puts everything else into context. 2 years ago, no, just over 2 years ago, I lost my father. He was suffering from blood leukemia and lots of other issues, but that's kind of by the by. I won't say we were close, but there were some things I did like about him, and the one thing we both shared was a passion for music, albeit different types. He liked classical and he liked ragtime, whereas I developed an interest in, well, I won't say progressive rock. I probably started there, but now it's extremely broad. And I'm reminded by friends of just how much influence I've had on them in terms of music. It's quite interesting, really, how it all works. Yeah, so I lost my father, and then my sister gave me the house, which I was stunned by, and I still am, and I still wake up every morning still not believing it. After a life of being in rented, if you've been in rented, you know what it's like. You end up with umpteen keys, and it's all money down the drain, isn't it, really? You're no more secure than when you started. So that was a wonderful thing to happen. But then more recently, I lost my younger brother. He's my half brother, but by and large, John and I got on reasonably well. We had issues between us, but he collapsed one night at home. Well, he fell out of the bed, I think, but he couldn't get up, and the ambulance was called, and it was discovered that he had major problems with his heart, including a hole in his heart. So he went in for surgery and slowly recovered from that. It was a very long process for him. But even then, even though he'd had the op, it was still a 50-50 thing. So we didn't really know how it would pan out, but I mean, he was a relatively young man at 41. So every chance. But then some months later, he had to go in the hospital again and have further tests. You know, not everything was going the way he hoped. And he had a major cardiac arrest on a trolley on the way to have a scan. And that was it. We lost him. There's nothing they could do. So that was a tough one, not least for his wife and his 2 children, who are still coming to terms with it, same as I am. And same as his parents, of course. We all are. But there's nothing we can do about it. It's happened. Then on top of that, I suppose this is more about me, isn't it, really? When I was much younger, in my early 20s, I used to live in a place called Clacton-on-Sea. And I worked on Butlins holiday camp, and there was a girl working in a booth. I don't know what she was selling, tickets, something like that. And it was one of those occasions when I did not just a double take, but a triple take, I thought she was absolutely stunning. I'd never seen a girl as beautiful as that. And we didn't sort of get together until, I don't know, a year or so later, perhaps a year and a half. And just fantastic. Total heart of gold. And I never ever met any woman like her. And for some reason, you know, I'd had sort of about 12 years on my own. This is in more recent times. And decided, well, I was still thinking about her after all this time. So, well, I'll get in touch with her and see how she's doing and that sort of stuff. And it turned out that she was in the tailspin of a tricky, I should say difficult marriage. It wasn't ideal. She wasn't happy in it. And we agreed to meet up. Well, of course, I'd changed, she'd changed. But within about half an hour of being with her, I felt exactly the same. And the connection was there. And I didn't want to lose her for some reason. And anyway, we sort of hooked up again. But because she'd been in a 35-year marriage, I don't know, 35, 36, she'd know. If you've been in a long marriage and it comes to an end, one of the real difficulties with it is, well, apart from the fact you get familiar with it, it's like being on a train, and suddenly, not only is the train gone, so have the tracks, and you have to kind of pick up and find yourself again, and that's a real challenge. It really does take it out of you, and that's where she is right now. And I hope that she comes out of that a bit more positive and knows what she wants to do. I think it's a great shame that coupled with COVID put the dampeners on the connection that she and I had. Yeah, it's been difficult. And I don't particularly want to say much more about that, but the point I'm trying to make, I suppose, is that not everything goes the way we'd like it to. And some of these things we just have to live with. Painful as they may be, we're stuck with them. And, you know, all of those things that have happened over the last 2 to 3 years have obviously had an impact. And it is quite difficult. I mean, I apart from the fact that I'm getting older, as we all are, I lost some enthusiasm in terms of working on Rail's house. Perhaps more about her than anything. It certainly had an impact on me. But life is the most precious thing we're ever given. That's my view. And like my mother, I tried to be upbeat and optimistic because there's no other way to get through life. I think if you've got a sense of humour, it helps. So I've had to really drag down to the depths to find that drive and enthusiasm to continue doing what I'm doing. And yeah, so anybody who's going through any of those things, I do sympathise. But, you know, eventually you have to kind of dust yourself down and say, oh well, that's it, let's get on with what we've got. And you know, like I say, life is a precious thing, isn't it? Right, we're back onto the Sony MHC NX1, and one of the things I thought about when I went to pick it up, I thought, that unit's 21 years old. Chances are it's going to need a belt kit for the tape mechanism. So I ordered that as soon as I got back, and then I thought, well, let's lift off the cover and see what the belts are like. Hanging there is probably the best way to describe it. Look, just laying in the bottom there, they're not around anything. There should be a belt round that pulley for starters. So it's just laying in the bottom now. So they're all stretched, or else they just turn a sort of into sticky mess, which is common on these things. And a lot of electronic stuff, actually, the capacitors tend to let them down. but this one seems to be holding up well. I think it's got some reasonably good quality ones in. Should have for a Sony. So just needs the belt kit. I'd say 15 quid to change all those out. Just whip all the fascia off, re-grease everything, we'll be good to go. The next day, I took that piece out so I can get to this fence which runs between me and neighbour. It's going to be a little bit tight to get to get a bolt in that side, but we'll move the slates if we have to. And a bit hard to determine whether this post on the corner is theirs or mine, but as it's like that at the bottom, and there was a post just laying here inside, we'll shove that in there because it's in good nick. That one I've got to do next, and that one I've done. And it's weird, if I stand over there and look at it, it looks like it's leaning over, but I put a spirit level on, it's bang on. It's the garage that's leaning over. Yeah, I've got this little space down here, but my dad at some point laid a kind of brick bed, which actually is good enough to park a vehicle on, and it's almost level with the concrete pad on the garage. So I've only got to do the same the other side, and I've got a concrete area, at least for 12 months, until some concrete man actually decides he's going to come out and do the work. And the trouble is, with lockdown finished, all builders are flat out, you know. It's difficult to get anybody to do any work for you. They're just swamped with it, and also there's a bit of a shortage of materials in some areas. As soon as you go to get them, they're sold out. So I was glad I got these posts when I did. Even then they were difficult. That was about a month past the date I was supposed to get them. But that's in anyway. A bit awkward this one because the concrete Godfather's well below the level of the garden here. It's come up, the soil's been piled up here in the past. Well, I've had to cut around it to get the bolts through. So I've stood it on a quarry tile and treated the bottom of the post, and hopefully that will keep that going for a number of years. And this bit of the fence I've just nailed up temporarily to it because I need to concentrate on this bit and seal off their garden. Anyway, the neighbour's been out and moved a few bits for me. I've managed to clear some bits of wood and stuff that were in there. They can go in my fire. So I shall crack on with that. Let's see how far we get. Next post. A bit awkward to do this one-handed, but I'll do it just for you. Right, if I get it roughly where it's meant to be, and then we'll use one of these easy cramps just so I can manoeuvre it really. A bit tighter. Kick the bottom over a bit. Yeah, a bit more. Not advised in trainers. Trusty old spirit level, which was second hand when I got it. How are you doing? Yeah, not far off. We need to go to the left a bit. Gone a bit too far. Happens. Yeah, that's good enough. Right, I'll tighten that clamp up a bit more. And what we've got to do is on the concrete Godfather's two holes, one there, one further down. Run the drill bit through so I just touch the wood, then unclamp this and drill right through, and then we'll put a bolt through that. Oh, it's a bit tight there. What do you do in a situation like that? Use a short drill? No, we'll just have to mark it by hand. Probably do it with a marker pen or something. I haven't got any room there. Or, yeah. Well, as I've just discovered, shed's in the way, so I have to mark this with a marker pen. Fair enough. Right, I'll go and get one. Yeah, that worked alright. Got one there and one there, so we'll drill those out. Yeah, well, a couple of hours later, by the time you've got these posts set in and the arris rails and the relevant brackets, and I did have to replace that, it was rotten as a pear. I've replaced it because technically it's on my boundary line, although it sort of replaces the post for the fence that way, but that's alright. But these slates that are sitting the other side have got to be moved because they're pushing the concrete godfather over. I know the weight of slates, they will move a concrete godfather, so they need to come out and either be stacked flat or gone or whatever, but not stacked against these posts because they won't take the weight of it. Yeah, don't know about their fence their side, but that's alright. And if I sound a bit hoarse, that's because I've gone a couple of hours without a drink. But I don't care because I really want to get this piece in. If I can get this piece in, I can temporarily put that piece across here overnight and then come and finish this tomorrow because I really want to pack up for the day. It's about 3 o'clock now. And I'm still full of enthusiasm, but I'm a bit dry. Right, we'll nail these on and get that done. Well, it's 20 past 4. Still haven't had a cup of tea. I need a drink. I think I'll just call it a day for today. Anyway, I've got these 3 posts in. I've got the panels up to that one. And I would have done that if I had been a younger man. I would have kept going till it got dark. Not now. So I've tacked up a temporary bit of fence in the meantime. We're left with a big pile of rubbish which I'll have to sort out tomorrow. But in the morning I've got VW stuff to do with a friend. So I'm going to call this a day. I think it's enough for a 62-year-old in one day, don't you? Anyway, it's nice and sturdy. That'll do. Thumbs up, thumbs down, depending, or leave a comment, and we'll see you next week. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.